Hello, everyone. This is a chat the backlog, the podcast where I, Marcus Nez, tries to make a dent in their backlog one game at a time. This episode is all about Trepang2, a first-person shooter, which I talked about the week I played RoboCop Unfinished Business, but opted to play that instead. And spoilers, I should have played Trepang2, which I knew back then and know even more now because I had played the first level and a little bit of the second level, having played through the entire campaign now, and knew it was very good. And having completed it now, the campaign, just the main story missions, because there are a bunch of side missions you can play, but I played through the campaign missions, which are maybe about 8. It's only about 6 or 8. It's a relatively short campaign with a fair amount of side missions, and there are DLC missions which I am assuming are just thrown in there, but I did not play any of those either. I had a really good time with it. If you remember what little I talked about it back during that RoboCop episode, it is very much so a kind of spiritual successor to the Fear series in gameplay specifically, but also a little bit in vibe. It's not quite the horror shooter hybrid that the Fear series was, but in terms of the high intensity gameplay and all that, it is very much so a Fear like. Now, before I even get to any of the gameplay or what makes the game so good, there's a caveat. There's a caveat that keeps it from potential all-timeness, that I don't want to say keeps it from greatness, because I still think the game's a great game, but being an excellent game, there is something that keeps it from that. But let's get the cat out of the bag, or let's talk about the one thing that we can all agree is terrible regarding the game, even if you've not played it, and that is the name. Trepang2 is, forget about the 2. Trepang, terrible title. Terrible title. Terrible name. I don't even understand. It's made by Trepang Studios, and I don't know what came first. It's like a chicken or the egg situation. What came first, the chicken or the egg? What came first, Trepang Studios or Trepang the game series? Is this a case of we created a studio called the Trepang, and then we wanted to name our games after our studio? So the first game was Trepang, and maybe Trepang 1 was third person mascot platform. I don't know. Probably not. I'm assuming Trepang 1 was just this, and maybe it was kind of like a proof of concept, and now Trepang 2 is the culmination of all that. I don't know the history of it. And maybe the only excuse I would give or accept for the title is if Trepang is actually a word in another language. So maybe Trepang in I don't know what language means SWAT or bang bang shooty shoot. I don't know. If that's the case, I kind of understand it then. But even then, you think you would go with an English title to have a more global title that is normal and more, I don't know. It just, if you see Trepang as the title of a game, you're not immediately going to think, oh, I want to play that. You're like, what the fuck is that? And maybe that's a potential selling point. Oh, Trepang, I don't know what that is. I want to see what that is. But if I were to see Trepang, I would be like, no, I'm good. Moving on. Let's see what the next game is. The only reason why this game appeared on my radar is because back when it originally was, I'm assuming, ported to Xbox, I received a code for it, and then I played a little bit of it, and I was like, man, this is basically Fear, and this is really good. And then I hadn't played it until now. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, it's a very good game, and it's all down to the gameplay. The high intensity firefights are super satisfying. It is also a case of a game that falls kind of in that, to use a movie comparison, the obsession, backrooms, they will kill you space of obviously not having the highest budget, but making use of what it has and doing it very, very well. So if you were to stop at any point and look at the game and the environment and all of that, the assets aren't super high. This isn't a super high fidelity game, but because it's a game about fast-paced action, it utilizes what it has incredibly well. So the lighting and the shadows are very well done. And then the particle effects and environmental damage is very well done and adds to the satisfying nature of combat. So, and also the game doesn't just take place in the same looking office spaces over and over and over again. You'll have a level that takes place in a traditional office looking area, and then one that takes place in a lot of library-esque spaces, and one that has a lot of bar spaces, and so on and so forth. And with that, the firefights will have bottles breaking and liquid flying all over the place, or books being destroyed, pages flying all over the place, glass breaking, so on and so forth. And all of that just makes for a very satisfying experience. And on top of that, the gunplay just feels really good, whether you're using pistols, shotguns, machine guns, rifles, anything in between, throwables, whether it be frag grenades, knives, etc. When you get into melee combat, that feels good. I mean, it's just a traditional push the right analog stick in for a melee attack. You can grab enemies who are a little weaker and then throw them around, snap their neck, use them as shields. It just feels good, looks good, plays well, and it's a super satisfying experience. The levels all have their unique-ish vibes too as well. One of them does fall more into that horror vibe that was very reminiscent of the Fear series, but a little different in that that level is super obviously inspired by, and I'm assuming that Backrooms and all of that creepypasta crap, because I don't follow creepypasta stuff. I don't know where that stuff began, how it began, when it began, any of that. But there is a level that is very clearly inspired by Backrooms. As someone who just watched that movie, the whole kind of yellowish empty office space looking area, there's a level that has that. And with that comes a spookier vibe, and one jump scare in particular that felt cheap and it pissed me off. And that whole level kind of annoyed me in the sense that I came there for an action game and now I'm in this spooky feeling level, and I was not happy about that. But it was well done and I got through it, obviously, and I appreciated that about the game. The fact that the way the campaign is structured is very open. You have a board of missions that are more populated the deeper you get into the game, and the deeper you get in, the more options you have and the more choice you have in terms of the order in which you tackle the missions. So you have the whatever 6 to 8 campaign missions which you can tackle in whatever order you want. And with that, you have all the side missions you can play if you want. And the reason why you would play side missions is that completing missions unlocks certain things. So when you start a mission, you will be able to pick your supplies, pick your weapons and all that. And completing a side mission, for instance, might unlock you the ability to equip frag grenades at the start of a mission, or a rifle, or a heavy machine gun, etc. So that is why you would want to do that. On top of that completing missions on at certain difficulty levels will unlock cheats that you can activate to complete levels. Doing so will make it so that completing any level is on easy. But I played through the entire game on hard specifically because I wanted to unlock infinite ammo, a cheat for that for future playthroughs, which you had to play through the cultist level. I forget what it's called, some kind of castle. And then I played through the whole game that way because I was just like, all right, I'll just do that, which was a little bit frustrating for the reason I'll get to what keeps it from greatness. But I really, really like the game. And I like how it just kind of lets you play it the way you want to play it to an extent. The campaign 2, while it has a story, it's not that great, in part because it's not tightly structured. It is more open, and with that comes a less engaging story and one that it's harder to care about. But it was still good enough to keep me kind of interested in it. The caveat, the thing that keeps it from all-timeness, greatness, even though I still say it's a great game, is the existence of boss fights. And depending on the level, some of them have up to 3 boss fights. And with that too comes a degree of tedium in how long the levels are. Some levels just feel like they have natural stopping points, and then they keep going, and then you hit another seemingly natural stopping point and it keeps going again over that. The castle is a perfect example of that, and probably is on the harder side, the more tedious side, because the reward for completing it is so high. If you complete it on hard, you get the cheat for unlimited ammo. And then if you complete it on, I think, extreme, because there are at least 2 difficulties above hard, you get the cheat for unlimited ammo with no reloads, which would be a very, very fun way to play the game. So I will probably attempt that, even though I don't know if I'll be able to pull it off, because the boss fights are so boring and tedious in their structure, because what they are is just a bunch of bullet sponge bullshit. They're not fun. They're not interesting. They don't have the same feel to gameplay, the high intensity feel that regular firefights have, where you're fighting against a group of enemies and they'll try to flank you. They communicate. The enemy chatter is fun during regular firefights as well, where they'll be firing a lot at your last known location. And then at some point, one of the members will be like, hey, everyone, stop firing. We need to regroup. And hearing stuff like that is a great way of, it's just a small way of immersing you in the experience and amplifying the intensity of the firefights, which I love playing the game. But to get back to the boss fights, they just end up being these bullet spongy, tedious fights where the strategy you utilize in the rest of the game is thrown out the window for these boring scenarios. In some cases, the final fight in the castle level, for instance, is in this open area with no cover, where you're taking on waves of enemies, and then you're fighting the cult leader, and you're just trying to run around in a circle, avoiding getting hit while killing these enemies, eventually doing damage to the boss. And with that one too, the boss will spawn in one of the other bosses, and it's just like, what are we doing here? You have bosses that, depending, because there are some monsters in the game as well, because the story is revolving around you are a kind of experimental patient. You have the ability to go with the fear thing. You do have a few abilities. One, to cloak yourself for maybe like 3 seconds at full bar, and then slow down time, which you build up by killing enemies. And that allows you to take on enemies and kill them very accurately. Time slows down, so you are at a great advantage. very satisfying. But the I don't even know how I got there, but the boss fights, to get back to them, they just suck. Yeah, some of the how there are monsters in the story and all that, but with some of them, they have the ability to either close the gap with you very quickly and do damage to you, or they might have a tentacle grabby power that will pull you right to them, which removes the gap between you, which is frustrating. But then so many of the boss fights, whether it is in an open area or more of a design space with a lot of potential cover, the loop of boss fights tends to just be you're in an area and then you're making laps around the area, constantly trying to keep space between you and the boss while getting some hits in on them, damage them, and they usually have segmented health, so at a certain point it'll auto save and then you'll move on to the next phase, or you'll move to a new area and continue the boss fight. It just ends up being a change to the gameplay that is not fun, for me at least. I did not like that. I think I could play through the game and still enjoy it, have a decent challenge, but a challenge I could get through easily-ish on the higher difficulties if you remove the boss fights. But with the boss fights, I think about the higher difficulties and I'm like, I don't know about these. I don't know about these, but I will give it a try, at least on that one level, to unlock the unlimited ammo with no reloads, because that would just make the game super fun. And you have a slide too, which is fun and very useful in fights to get around, avoid getting hit. It doesn't use a regenerated health system. It uses a more classic armor and health refill system. But I think it's a very, very, very good game. Yes, the boss fights suck, and we're never like, there's a boss fight where you're fighting a submarine, and that level, that fight locks you to a relatively small dock where it's broken up into, I think, 3 phases. And when the submarine rises up to the surface, you get a brief window to get some hits on it. Then it starts shooting a bunch of homing rockets at you, which you just have to run, again, laps in on the dock to avoid getting hit, and then repeat getting a few hits on it when it surfaces. And then in some of the later segments, it'll start shooting these rocket filled things that land on the dock and then open up to let out some regular grunts you get to kill that'll replenish your armor, because enemies tend to drop a little armor plate when you kill them, but also you'll get some ammo that way. And you just do this for a long time. It's just like, what? Why do these exist? They suck so much. But even with that, I still had a fantastic time. I just love the core gameplay and the gameplay loop so much. Again, I like how the levels all feel like their own thing, and that was probably continued in the side missions. So I'm excited to play those as well. I just like playing the game. It's the kind of shooter that may have a forever status on my Xbox because it's just fun to play. If I just boot it up to play part of a mission and not even complete a mission, I'm still going to have a good time. It's satisfying in that way. And again, when I start activating some of the cheats, unlimited stamina, infinite ammo, it's going to be an even better time. So I think it's a really, really good game that has that one caveat, which is unfortunate, but it's there and there's nothing you can do about that. But yeah, that is Trepang2, a first-person shooter with very fun, high intense firefights that has really bad boss fights, unfortunately. and a lot of them, and they vary from level. Like some levels will have one boss fight, then others will have 3 boss fights, and the degree to which the boss fights suck is different. It just it would have been a better game without that. But I think to myself, this is such a great example of how boring, even though it's a different style of game. Like this would be more comparable to the Rainbow Six series than the Call of Duty series. But just thinking about playing through the last Call of Duty game that I did, there's no comparison to how much more fun and how better the gunfights and the scenarios and all of that, the mission structure feels in Trepang2 compared to Call of Duty. I would play this game over a recent Call of Duty game 10 out of 10 times. So yeah, Trepang2 is a great first-person shooter that I highly recommend, especially if you do have a love and affinity for the old Fear games. You miss them, you want them back, and you haven't played this. It's really good, and it is that again. It's the closest we'll ever get to another Fear game, especially now that the Monolith Studios was closed a few years ago. At this point, one of the saddest studio closures for me, as a huge fan of all their stuff, Condemned, Fear, Middle Earth series. They were such a talented studio, and they're no more. And what else is no more is this episode, because that is going to do it for this year episode of Attack the Backlog. Once again, I am Marcus Nez. Y'all can find me pretty much everywhere at PX Sausage. If you enjoy this here show or any of the stuff I do and what have you, you can support me and my nonsense over at patreon.com/PXS. There you can get access to exclusive content, a private Discord channel, and some fancy Discord roles. Or you could just support me to support me if that is your fancy. That is, again, patreon.com/PXS. In addition to the Patreon, you can find links to the site, the YouTube, the Discord, and so much more over at pxsausage.com. That is the letter P, the letter X, sausage.com. But that is it. That is all. As always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoyed this here episode, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. But for now, adios, arrivederci.